Hi, how you doing? Welcome to Midnight Road Technology Studios in its convertible form. The overhead doors open. The train is going in the background, which is going to continue to get noisier. Unfortunately, I picked an unfortunate time to start. Um, so if I have to pause, you'll have to forgive me, because otherwise you won't hear me over it when it gets close enough. It's not like it's even right in the backyard. It's actually a half mile over, but it's angled just right for that train horn. It's a beautiful night out. I mean, it's cool. It's nice. Yeah, so needless to say, I had to open up the doors. Um, so tonight, I'm actually picking a topic that's based on a conversation um, with a friend of mine earlier today when, well, it basically boiled down to she had some concerns about ADHD. And, well, this is something I've been struggling with a lot lately, especially after I knocked caffeine out of my diet and I've reduced the amount of nicotine. I don't actually smoke, I actually use these things, which I've got it with which is a 6 milliliter, not millimeter, 6 milliliter mix, which means it's about as light as I can get it without being no nicotine whatsoever. My next step, I'm going to see if I can get a half mix and get a 3 milliliter. The relevance of this is well, nicotine and caffeine are both have an effect on ADHD. So seeing me struggle with this, she had a friend that, yeah, she was seeing some issues with ADHD, and it brought up the question, well, why doesn't everybody who's on ADHD go on medication? Maybe that's not a good choice. Why should you go on medication? Why shouldn't you? Well, here's the first thing. See, there's a whole list of attributes of bad things. Um, uh, the first thing is, hang on, sorry. This is also done as a live event, so the cool part is that people can message and get a hold of me through Twitter, Facebook, Google Plus, and the chat interface for the Google Hangouts. The downside to that is it does mean every once in a while I'll be looking over to check the messages that are happening um, as we go along. Them are be probably absolutely um, nothing relevant. So yeah. Anyways, so let's kind of review one thing real quick, and you're going to see me hitting my notes over here. Um, what's the problem with ADHD? Well, I'm gonna read you this, and this is actually an acronym about living with ADHD. It's called FAST Minds. Fast minds: forgetful, achieving below potential, stuck in a rut, time challenge, motivation, impulse. Basically, you're being impulsive, novelty seeking, distractibility, scattered. These are the disadvantages of having ADHD. Actually, that's not even nearly a complete list. For instance, it does not get into the issue of, for instance, hyperfocus. Hyperfocus is when your brain has locked in on something and you can't let go. Or disengagement. Disengagement is where you suddenly become so disinterested in something. You may literally fall asleep right where you're at. It is not unheard of for somebody with issues with disengagement to literally fall asleep at the wheel. Now, I don't have problems. Well, as far as I know, I don't have problems with disengagement, or at least not even nearly at that level. Though if you make me stop moving for a while and try and get me to stop thinking or fiddling with my hands or something, I got about 5 minutes, and then I check out. I'm not asleep, but I check out. Getting to sleep is a whole different issue. In fact, how you doing? Welcome to Midnight Road Technology Studio. Hi. Apparently, I have another version that's running here somewhere. I probably ought to turn it off. Give me just a second here. Oh, that's not it. That's it. Okay. Now I'm not making noise at the same time that I'm talking. And even odder, it was a little off on its timing. So apparently it was moments behind. Anyways, so it doesn't actually, that list doesn't actually hit the entire list of problems with ADHD, and there's also associations between ADHD and some people having problems with I can't think of the word, seizures. There we go. There's some association between the two conditions, and there's a lot of misdiagnosis that's happened over the years. A lot of people are diagnosed with ADHD that they don't have ADHD, especially in kids. For instance, lack of structure will aggravate ADHD, or it can also produce a child who doesn't actually have ADHD but ends up becoming medicated anyways. It's an unfortunate thing, but that happens. But we're not here to talk about all the negatives. See, that's the thing about it. There actually are some cool positives to being ADHD. And when I was talking to my friend, I said, look, here's some of the things. And I sent a couple of links over. The problem with it was a mixed bag. See, some of it was true. So it was very true. Some of it, not so much. Some of it's just, yeah, it sounds cool until you think about it for just a moment. So I'm going to hit a couple of these because the first list was probably the most annoying because it come from it was a sum up of 10 surprising facts about people who have ADHD. Now this wasn't just like some random person. This was an ADHD expert and author of Movers, Dreamers, and Risk Takers: Unlocking the Power of ADHD. Guy by the name of Kevin Roberts. And the list he created, really. Okay, so let me hit down the list. First, many ADHD sufferers are millionaires. Cool. The many non-ADHD sufferers are millionaires. It's a completely irrelevant fact. Artists, musicians, actors, and athletes often have ADHD. Often is actually very true. Field difference is a concept that occurs in athletes. For instance, let's say you're a football player. If you have your ADHD in check, you have this neat ability. So you can actually absorb tons of data at once. And if your ADHD is under control, and I don't mean chemically under control, I mean you have it under control. It's now part of you rather than you struggling with it. When you have it, neat things happen when it comes to understanding everything that's going on around you. You can pick every detail out of a scene and sift through what's important and what's not. That whole thing about ooh, shiny, well, it's really true about ADHD people. Oh, shiny, neat. Well, when you've got it under control, you've taken note of it. It may not be what you focus on for the moment, but you know it's there. And the other 16 things that are ooh, shiny things. It really is an advantage. In fact, to the point, there's a thought that ADHD may actually be less of a defect and more of a throwback. See, let's say you're a hunter on the Serengeti. Well, wouldn't that ability to be able to note everything going on at once be a huge advantage, considering that you're looking for food, and you're also looking to not become food? Suddenly knowing where everything's at and what everything's doing at the same time, pretty cool advantage. So it gives people that hunter class, so to speak, a huge advantage. ADHD people can have a very high IQ. Non-ADHD people can have a very high IQ. It doesn't. Yeah. ADHD people thrive on intensity. This is very true. I always have, and you can't see the workboard right now because it's actually part of the door. Yeah, no. See, I have to have a certain amount of stress in my life, or I don't get anything done. There has to be pressure. In fact, actually, the closer to the breaking point that pressure is, the better it is for me. And it's a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing. It means that you end up procrastinating on so much because you know you're going to get it done in the end. But you got to have the pressure on top of you. You can't have just one thing going on. You have to have enough that really makes you go. Number 5, ADHD is not a sickness. It's about a uniqueness in the brain. Well, it's a polygenetic disorder. Now the thing is, the term disorder one might associate with being a disease. Like I said before, it could be a throwback towards a time where we had to have different skills. Many ADHDers start their own business. Many non-ADHDers start their own business. Again, a non-fact. Bad parenting does not catalyze the ADHD. That might not be true. Here's why. France has a completely different level of diagnosed ADHD patients. And part of the reason why is supposed this may be is that here in the U.S. we've started the process of liberating our children. Less structured environments, less rules, less things they have to do, and they just get to do whatever they want to. To a certain extent, there are households that's that way. In France, on the other hand, much more structured environment from beginning to end. Now, see, the thing is, as I said, that may not be true because nobody knows if that's really the case. But the number of diagnosed ADHD cases is completely different than the number of diagnosed and treated ADHD cases in the United States. There could be other factors at work here. The problem is there's enough papers written on the subject. They don't all agree. And even then, saying that it's bad parenting, I suppose, is disingenuous on my part. My parents were bad parents, but I still have ADHD. On the other hand, I had much better control for a lot of my life. Of course, I also drank a lot of caffeine, and then later I took up smoking in my late teens, mid-teens. Yeah, about 14. So it's really hard to say whether that's true or not. So it's a statement that they make that it's a BS statement. It really is. There's no way to tell either way. ADHD people are not lazy. This is pretty true. This actually throws back to ADHD people thrive on intensity, which non-ADHD people do too sometimes. Usually most non-ADHD people are a little more sane about this particular issue. ADHD people, there's a known phenomenon of being procrastinators. Horrible procrastinators at times. It's difficult to get around. It really is. Sorry, checking messages again. Well, just people hitting like on it. Anyways, back to my list. But anyway, so they're not lazy. It's really there's a part of procrastination that has to occur, and it's a horribly odd problem. When ADHD people find their passion, they are unstoppable. There's some non-ADHD people that when they find their passion, they're unstoppable also. It's a personality trait. It's not necessarily a portion of ADHD. On the other hand, if you ever experience somebody dealing with hyperfocus, they are unstoppable. It is true in that respect. You almost can't pry somebody away. ADHD people are high energy, fun, and make life more exciting. Okay, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. The H means yes, there comes with a big old bundle of energy when you're dealing with an ADHD person. Oddly enough, I would love it to say that there's some sort of body morphism that goes with it, that i.e., hey, that hyperactivity part, they're always thin people. I'm not thin. But there is a whole lot of energy. I mean, when I get started and do something and get moving, I know very few people that will keep up with me, especially in physical activities. I can just keep going and going. And finally, when I've run out of either completely and utterly run out of energy or the job's done, sit down, plop, and then I'm just done. I'm wiped out, just like everybody else. But that process in between, usually I can outwork most people. So you notice, out of this list of 10 things that this guy who's an expert says, most of them are just non-statements. They don't mean anything. Going back to that first one, many ADHDers are millionaires. Yeah, well, many of them aren't. And many people who don't have ADHD are millionaires. Now, there's actually a better list, and I'm going to go through this list because it's a little cooler. There's actually 2 more that I have, but we won't necessarily go into them too far. Compassion. supposed to be that ADHD people are deeply empathetic. I don't know how true that is. I don't have enough basis to work from. And this is from somebody who actually deals with and treats ADHD. But supposedly they are. They're a much more compassionate person. Creativity. Okay, you can't have ADHD without creativity. I have never met anybody with this without this. The amount of stuff that goes through an ADHD person's head just walking through a room. They may have painted 16 pictures, wrote 2 novels, at least designed one video game on their way to the restroom. Because all the things that caught their eye have a story behind them, or have a thought, or have an impulse. And it's amazing. It happens. And it really is true. I've never met an ADHD person who wasn't just incredibly creative. It seems to be one of the hallmarks of it. It also is a downside to it, because unless you focus on one thing, those 16 paintings, 2 novels, and a video game design, when they get to the restroom, they've forgotten it all because they see the shiny chandelier that somebody decided to put in the restroom. There has to be a follow-up with it. And so it's one of the disadvantages is flip side of the advantage. All that creative energy may not actually utilize it. There's a lot of self-control that gets involved that you have to actually utilize creativity, but it's there in huge amounts. Huge amounts. I've written 4 books, 1 not published. I have 5 more books in the works. I have, and if you can't see the board, right now I have, these are all active projects, 2 video games, Jumpman Forever and Crucible, that are actively being worked on. 4 websites, Beaver Lake Campground, Susan Landon, Morbid Hearts, Cloud Pages, 2 magazines I'm trying to get rebooted, Residential Aliens and Fear and Trembling, 1 app, and then a couple of proposals that are in the works. That's what I decided to write on the board. What I didn't write on the board was just the sheer bulk of ideas that I know from experience at this point in my life, I know I'm not going to get to execute on. And that's okay. Drive was the next one. And I like this description that goes with the statement. When an ADHDer is bored with the task, completing it can seem like torture. Absolutely. It's sometimes that way for non-ADHD people too. But there has to be a certain level of passion behind a task. If there is. But give us an interesting project to work on and watch out. We will, when we want to succeed, we will have the necessary tools to do so. There is no stopping us. It's going back to the other list too. There's some abilities there when it comes to making it happen. They're pretty impressive. It doesn't mean that an ADHD person is always going to succeed at the task. Because you notice they put a couple conditions on there if they have the tools necessary to do so. For instance, just because you have an ADHD person is fixated on the idea of going to the moon, if they don't have the tools to do so, it's not going to happen. Problem-solving abilities. This is very much true. ADHD people and problem-solving goes together hand in hand. It's something about the ability to think in so many different threads at one time. Something about the ability to think so much outside the box and to be spurred by all the details. Because trust me, if you got yourself under control, you spot everything. Actually, I shouldn't say that. You'll spot every non-mundane thing. In fact, I've been picked on this before a number of times. I will see everything important in the room, from my perspective important. The mundane stuff, who cares about that? Why would I even think about it? If it's on fire, I'm going to notice it. But if it's not, I don't care that there's a dish towel laying on the table. Why is that important? It is much more important that there's a cool-looking cobweb up in the corner. That thing looks kind of like a Van Gogh. Yeah, so you have to understand what triggers some of that. But the problem-solving ability is there. For some reason, just locking it all together and knocking it out is part of the package. Hyperfocus. Hyperfocus. This person lists it as an advantage, and it is this both sides of a coin thing. Hyperfocus is part of the reason why OCD and ADHD sometimes get misdiagnosed each direction. Throw in just a little bit of necessity for structure and for rituals, which both ADHD and OCD have. Yeah, it's easy for one to be diagnosed with the other. They're not necessarily, they're similar, but they're not necessarily related. Hyperfocus is part of that package, but you don't really have it the same way over on OCD. But ADHD is the process of just locking in, and you can't let go. And that's part of when I say can't let go. I was having a conversation with my wife. I'm in the kitchen, I'm talking, and I proceed to wash the wall. And I don't know, I was there for a good hour talking with her, continuing to wash the wall until when she finally asked me something about it. I said, I can't stop. I was stuck doing this. It was not even a choice I had anymore. I had to do that. And that's just the way it works sometimes. That's how hyperfocus works. Now, I'm obviously, it does not mean that it's to the exclusion of the entire world. I was having a conversation, and I was just fine. But it's a thing. Listed as an advantage, and sense of humor, comedic flair. I have no idea if there's any truth to this. And I'll tell you why. Because I know plenty of non-ADHD people who have a sense of humor. I mean, I've got one. I've got quite a bit of sense of humor. I'd like to think I'm funny. I think I'm funny, and really, that is what matters, right? I think I'm funny. But the truth is, hang on just a second. Sorry, just had to make fun of somebody there. Anyways, truth is that I've completely forgotten what my point was because I've had that moment. Find the list again. Find the right list because there's plenty of lists. There are plenty of tabs open. Yeah. Sense of comedic flair. Yeah, there's really no way that I think that this one could be nailed down to being an ADHD attribute. I think it's just more of a personal attribute. If you're high energy, most of the high energy people I know, regardless of anything about this, tend to be funny people to a certain degree. Resiliency. And I'm going to read this quote. There's no denying that even though there are many great qualities that come along with ADHD, there are also challenges. But ADHDers have an incredible ability to bounce back from those challenges and keep moving forward. Nothing stopped me yet. Only once in my life have I actually been brought to a standstill. And that required a level of failure so amazingly high. The loss of a business, the loss of a marriage, the loss of my car, the loss of my house. This is how much it took to actually get me stopped in my tracks finally. Yes, ADHD people are resilient. Belief. Some non-people are too, don't get me wrong. But they really are. Because I think it's part of the brain chemistry thing. If you're being able to be distracted by everything else, yeah, there's always something great around the corner. And that's the beauty of life with ADHD. There is always something amazing around that next corner. You have no idea what it is. It doesn't matter. It could be a shiny piece of string, but it was an amazing thing, and it just reinforces that the next corner you go around is going to be even more amazing. Intuition. ADHDers have a sharp sense of intuition. This may be due to the highly tuned levels of perception or great insight into the human mind or something else that we have yet to understand. Whatever reason, it's a useful gift. Meh, I don't know. I don't know if it's true or not. Idea generators. Okay. This is another one of those things that ADHD people excel at. You remember that whole thing, example I gave of going across the room, coming up with 16 paintings, 2 novels, and a video game idea? That's an ADHD person. In fact, it's a non-stop stream of really cool ideas. I mean, don't get me wrong. So much of these ideas is like, oh, neat, 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 neat. You notice I'm not keeping any of them because most of them are trash, but they're neat. They're really neat ideas. But you find little nuggets of gold, and you set those aside, or in my case, you put them up on the workboard under proposals and upcoming, so that they can be worked on and turned into something that's actually worthwhile. Yeah, there is an amazing attribute, though, of ADHD people, just to nonstop create, nonstop ideas. And there is nothing like you can throw random words out, and they are going to come up with amazing ideas just based off of random words. Number 10, that's something special. Okay, I'm going to read this one, because this is one that I find to be BS. That's something special. Many ADHDers feel that they have a unique way of looking at the world, a perspective that others just don't understand. That is, until the ADHDer people meets other people with ADHD. You might say that they're on their own wavelength. And that's one of the reasons why it's important to connect with each other on a regular basis for support and inspiration. I actually do agree with that whole idea of connecting with other ADHD people. I mean, sure, why not have an entire convention of them? If you just hang strings with tinsel on the top of the room, at least you'll keep them all occupied at once. You turn on a fan so all the little pieces of shiny string move. Yeah. Every group thinks that it has something special, or that the people that they take care of have something special. Those with autism, they see the world in that special way. Those with OCD see the world in that special way. Yes, different groups of different types of mindsets do see the world differently. I don't know if they make this sound special. There's every day for a person with ADHD is something special. And when they run across somebody else with ADHD, they all nod sagely at each other. There was a list. In fact, actually, I should have probably brought it up before I did this one, of 29 things that ADHD people want to understand. In fact, you know what? Let's see if we can find this real quick. Ah, 29 things that only a person with ADHD would understand. And yes, I mean, everybody who has ADHD looks at this list, and I saw on Facebook, and I laughed because a couple of people had posted that, and they had listed which numbers applied to them. To an extent, all but one of them applied to me. Now, the question became, how much in control did I have it? Number one, the feeling you might explode if you don't let the words come out of your mouth. All the words right now. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I wish everybody would shut up and just let me talk. Just let me talk. I should be the one doing the talk. I don't know why you're still talking, because I know I should. No, would you let me talk? Yeah. Very impatient about it. One of those things that I've learned to be patient upon. And keep track of conversations with Venn diagrams, because you're only 2 sentences in and your brain has already flooded. I've had those days. Those are bad days for me. I consider that to be frustrating. In a conversation that happened earlier today, my wife was pointing out that when I had quit smoking completely, no nicotine, that I was angry. I said, no, I wasn't angry. She goes, no, you're right. You weren't angry. You couldn't keep your brains together, so you were frustrated. It's like, yes, that's much more like it. To me, those are the bad days. The blank space appears in your mind when you're asked a question about something else. Yeah. Panicking when your office manager asks at the weekly meeting, who's been using all the Post-its? I don't use Post-it notes anymore. I haven't in years. Now, funny story. And this goes on to show you how much that whole thing about creativity and ADHD and all these things go together. I used to have this blue convertible. It was a Dodge Shadow. Beautiful little car. It was the first time I'd ever bought a car off the lot for myself. And it was always trashed out. Just always trashed out. But nobody was allowed to clean this thing. And the reason why, it was not uncommon for me at a stoplight or to even just pull over and write down an idea on the back of a McDonald's fast food bag or whatever fast food, and then toss them aside. So if somebody was going to help me clean my car, they actually had to stop and check to see what was written on these things. There was notes and ideas and things I was supposed to do, which, of course, if I read something I was supposed to do on a McDonald's bag and then tossed it in the side seat, it got lost. The occasional realization that grown-ups actually do iron their clothes, but it has absolutely no effect on whether you do. When I wake up in the morning, I grab the first T-shirt and pair of jeans. I do not care. In fact, my wife has learned to depend on this, and she will shuffle my clothes so that the things she wants me to wear go to the front because they're more likely to be grabbed because I'm very unlikely to have sorted through them very much. Excessive adherence to a system. And to go to the extremes and to go to... See, I'm going too fast now. Obsessive adherence to a system and the extremes you'll go to keep anyone from messing with it. Until you get bored and just don't care anymore. Yes. Yes. Why aren't you doing it my way? Blah, blah, blah. There's a whole lot of that. Hyperventilating when you look at a calendar, especially after forgetting you even had one. That one I'm mixed on because, yes, it happens, but on the other hand, it's only for the tasks that you haven't focused on. The tasks that you focused on, you moved them on the calendar date so that because you knew in your head, well, I'm really not going to get that done until closer to the time for it to be done. Taking 45 minutes to pick out a pair of black socks at the store because, oh my God, all the socks. Yeah. I mean, it's just you have your random things. Doing dishes and every other chore at the same time. Good thing I'm vacuuming now because if I found everything the kids stuffed under the sofa and wait a minute, did I feed the goldfish? Oh yeah, I really need to look up that one thing on the internet about fish tanks, and maybe I'll just drop the fish tank off with some overflowing water in the dish. Oh my God, dishes sink is overflowing. Wait, where did I put the goldfish? This is part of what's going on with Midnight Ridge Technology Studio. As I work on it, I will walk through the room and begin picking up one thing, one item, I'm just going to move one thing, and 30 minutes later, I'm on the other side of the room. The item that I picked up originally may still be in my hand or maybe on a shelf right beside me as I worked on something else entirely. The best one, though, was painting rooms. See, when I was doing Gamer Zone, we had a room that we needed painted. And the plumber walked in and he was watching this. He just shook his head at it. See, I can't paint a wall. Something in my brain prevents me from doing that. What happens is I begin painting this wall. I move to that wall because that wall's brighter than this wall, and then I have to do. They're not done. See, a person who's logical and normal will paint the entire wall. Not me. I'll paint that wall, that wall, that wall, that wall, all at the same time. Just kind of bounce back and forth. It looks like a pinball. Now the thing is, and I could keep going on this, the thing is, it seems like I'm just describing all sorts of nothing but disadvantages. Surprisingly, none of these are. Part of these are just conditioned out of it. And they're the things that you watch out for. The things that you know are going to be... and the things you're going to be distracted by. Like my friends. Somebody just posted a meme that says ADHD kids. And it's one of those things that had the 6 pictures, well, what teachers think we do. It shows the kids misbehaving throwing paper airplanes. What society think, and that's really where it ends. In fact, there's only one actual picture on there. The rest of them just have fallen apart. And obviously he's went off to go after a squirrel or something. Yes, this very much happens. Yeah. It's part of the reason why there's always about 50 tabs open on my browser at any given time, because I'll start researching something and I'll go to the next thing and I'll scroll off to that one and da-da-da. Now, on the other hand, you notice I said there's 50 tabs open. Before I'm done, those will all get closed. I mean, not done, maybe a couple of days. Before I'm done researching that topic, they'll all have been read from beginning to end. Just maybe not in the order that I originally planned on. And I'll absorb all of that information. Actually, lately, for the last couple of days, or last 2 weeks, let's say 2 weeks. We'll make up a number. I'm going to say it's 2 weeks. It probably wasn't. I was literally getting more and more foggy-brained dealing with all of this, that I couldn't quite keep that tactic up. Now, this is all my fault. See, as long as I'm working out and taking my workout shake, I'm much improved. And today, actually, as of last night, about midnight, I think it was, I don't know, I had thrown some Foo Fighters on because Facebook says somebody posted what was the name of that song? Baker Street by Jerry Rafferty, which then caused Facebook to decide to point out that Foo Fighters had done a cover of Baker Street, which caused me to click on that and start listening to that, and about half that song, which wasn't a bad take on it. In fact, it was interesting to hear them and how they did the guitars on that song. Vocals were all right, but the guitars work was actually fantastic, which then made me have to listen to rock and roll as covered by the Foo Fighters when they had two of the actual members of Led Zeppelin with the band for that guest performance. And then that led me to listening to the entire best of 2 album set, best of Foo Fighters, Essential Foo Fighters, I believe it was. But somewhere in that process, felt the neurons. They ooh, pretty. I have gotten more work done from midnight last night, and I don't mean I stayed up all night. I stayed up until about 3:30, and I got more work done today and in that time period than I have in weeks. The phone calls, the emails, completion of the first phase of a website project, the meetings today, and all the stuff to organize stuff. When it's on, and it's amazing. And there was a point behind this. I've lost a point. But yeah, it's that fog, that haze kind of lifted. And it really, in all dead to rights, it should not have. Part of it is probably my brain has finally calmed down after not having to deal with the lack of caffeine, because it's been about a month, I think. And the memory is starting to return. ADHD and memory problems are kind of weird how those work. They're not the standard apparently, from what I've heard described it. They're not the standard issue memory problems a lot of people deal with. What's fun is I'm going to reduce the nicotine levels again until eventually I'm smoking these things with no nicotine in them, just to see if I can trick my brain. Anyways, the whole point behind this, there are some articles out there that propose to be the great benefits of ADHD, and some of them are crap. But on the other hand, there really is some advantages to it. And the idea that some people have that you should be chemically altered to improve your ADHD may be quite faulty. Because the problem with when you start chemically altering using Ritalin and a number of these drugs is that you have the advantages at one point and the disadvantages. And when you take the drug, you don't just get rid of the disadvantages. You get rid of all of it. It's unfair to a person, especially it's unfair to kids. There are some kids that it's undoubtable that they have to have some sort of assistance, but on the other hand, they could just be taking L-tyrosine and working out, or playing football, or playing sports, or any number of things that are physical activity. Endorphins and adrenaline heavily affected. That's why I said it's partially my fault, because I haven't been working out. So there's yeah, there's these advantages. Anybody who has ADHD and starts to get themselves under control becomes pretty impressive at times. I don't keep my stuff under control and under check as I always should right now. Um, Meh, so it happens. Um, but yeah, if you got kids that have ADHD, then giving them drugs ain't the solution. There's plenty of other solutions. If your doctor's first thing is to give them, to say that they need to be on Ritalin or something, tell the doctor to take a hike. Go find a specialist in ADHD. And for example, this is off of a different list, and this isn't necessarily the positives and negatives to it. It's actually it has a couple of pieces of advice, and this is from Abigail Leverin, PhD, and she provides services to people with ADHD in Virginia. And here's the one, I think it was: put yourself in the right environment and work with an ADHD expert. Okay, if you have a kid and they're in a cluttered environment, they're going to have a problem keeping it clean, but they're also going to have a problem being distracted all the time. Help them keep it clean. So don't just bang on them for being dirty. Help them keep it clean, and then suddenly they'll be able to focus better. Work with somebody who is an expert in ADHD, a therapist who has the right talents in helping manage ADHD will do it without drugs, because it's amazing, because there's plenty that can be done without them. And yes, here I am. I'm the guy that's basically self-dealing with it. I don't go to a doctor for ADHD. Why would I? It just costs me money. On the other hand, I have a Bowflex, and the workout stuff that I have that has L-tyrosine in it isn't particularly expensive. As long as I do both of them, pretty well off. Or I could just go back to drinking caffeine. If there wasn't other reasons why I wanted to quit drinking caffeine, which mainly being I'm 43 years old and I have a hard time sleeping at night because I'm jazzed up all the time. Yeah, there's ways of controlling these things, and completely erasing what is probably a good set of advantages for somebody later on in life, probably not a good choice. And if they do decide to quit taking ADHD medication later on in life, now they're ill prepared for it. Help them prepare for it, etc., etc. Don't think that this is the only choice. Find ways of helping them deal with it. Find an expert and work with them. Anyways, this has been a really ridiculously long-winded, but it doesn't surprise me because this isn't a simple topic. So yeah, hopefully if you were watching this, you actually learned something about the advantages of ADHD. If you didn't, well, anyways, see you next time. Bye. Maybe bye. Hit the button.